So this happened 10 years ago, so I'm going to remember this as best as possible. I was reminded of this by a recent news story in my neighbourhood. 10 years ago, I was working my very first job, which was retail. The store location was not in a very good neighbourhood. Theft and violence was bad, but I needed the money. I had to walk every afternoon, and my mother would pick me up in the evenings. That day, however, my boss scheduled me for a morning shift on the weekend, so I went in early and got out in the afternoon. This takes place when I was walking home after work. I was walking down the sidewalk on the road when I got a bad feeling in my stomach. I turned my head slightly when I noticed that someone was behind me. I told myself he was walking in the same direction as me, but the bad feeling wasn't going away. I'm a paranoid person, so I told myself I was just overreacting. Well, we kept walking down the same road, and after a few moments, I took a peek over my shoulder again. He was closer now. I began to shake and internally panic. Up ahead, I saw a gas station, and decided to change direction and head inside of it. Rather than stay on the sidewalk, I cut into a parking lot that made it a straight line shot into the gas station. Hoping the guy would stay on the sidewalk, I took another peek behind her. The guy was following me. Now we're a lot closer. I began to visibly panic, as the guy was practically right behind me. Before I could just make a run for it, a large van pulled into the parking lot and pulled up right next to me. The window went down and I almost cried in relief. It was my parents in their van. My mum said, "Want a ride home?" I rushed to the other side of the van and jumped in. As we pulled out of the parking lot, I looked back and the guy watched me for a minute, then went back to the sidewalk and walked down the street, not even heading into the gas station anymore. Apparently, my parents saw how close the guy was, and my dad even cut someone off to get into the parking lot before the guy could touch me. I didn't even notice them coming until they pulled up next to me. One of the biggest things that scared me was not only the guy who almost grabbed me, but this happened in broad daylight. It wasn't even in the evening. There were cars going down the road randomly, and even people going in and out of the gas station not too far from us. I have no idea what he was planning, but I thank God, or whatever higher power is out there, that my parents got to me first. I started taking another route home during the day, and I never saw the guy again. Creepy stalker? Let's not meet again. This happened last night, so I may have updates in the next couple of days. Last night was a Champions League final between Liverpool and Tottenham, and I was supporting Liverpool, so my family and friends were very happy when they won, so the celebrating started. I don't really like partying, so I went outside to my back garden to text my friend, and a couple hours later, more people showed up through the back gate and came in. A bit later, the motion sensor light outside the gate turned on, so I assumed someone was a bit lost on how to get in. So I went and opened the back gate and walked down the alley to the front of the house, where I saw no one. So I glanced over to my car, which was in front of our house, and that's when I see him. Someone, crouched down by the side of my car. I believed it was a man, as it looked too big to be a woman. The light gave me enough time to see a grey jacket and jeans. They then moved around to the back of my car. I took the opportunity to run to the back garden and bolt my gate. I then ran around my living room to see if I could see anyone, and I didn't. This only happened last night, so I will update if anything else happens. Hi, name's Kodatine. I have 2 stories to tell, both within a week of each other, and we'll be posting the second in a different post, because I don't know if they're connected. I just found out about this subreddit and figured it would be a good place to talk about my story from when I was a child. I think about this incident a lot. When I was a child, I lived in Rhode Island, in a small, predominantly Portuguese neighbourhood, where most every family knew the members of every other family. I would spend almost every day at my grandmother's house because my father worked 2 jobs, and my mother was a nurse, so grandma did most of the child raising for them. Now, the layout of the house is important here. She had a fairly large house, big front yard, and a long straight driveway running along the right side of the house with a small gate. From the side driveway, there were a few steps into a small, alcove, with a door that I would use to get inside. The side door was my grandmother's preferred way that people come in and out of her house, because she was super anal about caring for the garden out front. I used to play with RC cars in the driveway, or just run around and be a little idiot, as children tend to do. One day, a large brown van parked in front of the house while I was outside playing with my RC cars. Grandma was inside, in the kitchen, which was situated at the back of the house facing the backyard, so she didn't know what was happening. I remember a lot of the details about this van. It was huge. It looked like a van you'd seen in the 70s movies or something, but the paint was all chipped. It didn't look good at all, rusty and beat up. It was filled to the brim with stuff. It had a lot in it. I distinctively remember a blonde-haired, pink-faced doll that was so clustered in with all the other junk that it was pressed right against the glass of the van. There were other plush toys too, but that doll stuck out to me because I had a morbid fear of dolls. My grandmother had porcelain dolls, and my dad had taken to scaring the shit out of me with child's play, so dolls equals bad. That probably saved my life, to be honest. There was a man in the front. I couldn't see his details very well. The car turned off, and he just sat there, staring at me. He motioned for me to come to him, and I approached the van, but as soon as I caught sight of that doll, I booked it inside. I left my toys out there and ran into the kitchen screaming and crying. I almost knocked over everything she was cooking. I was completely hysterical. "A man is out there! A man is out there!" is all I could remember screaming. She picked me up and went outside, and when we were there, the van was gone. There was no evidence of anything. My toys were untouched. She picked them up for me and kept them inside all day, and said I wasn't allowed to go outside. I don't think she ever told my mum, because up until I left home for college, I refused to go out alone, and my mum always thought that it was weird that I didn't. So I said I had two posts back to back. My previous post explains the layout of my grandmother's house, so I figure you can check to get the grasp of it. The side driveway and side door comes into play again, as does the everyone knowing everyone community. This story takes place a couple of weeks after the first incident. My grandmother's kitchen was industrial in terms of the noise, loud fans and cooking, to the point where, even if I was screaming, she wouldn't be able to hear me. I'd have to go and get her myself. By this point, I'd already pushed back the near kidnapping to the back of my mind, assuming if I never went outside again, I'd be safe. I was watching some Portuguese talk show absent-mindedly in the family room when I heard the side doorbell ring. My grandmother had two distinct doorbells, one for the front of the house and one for the side. Front of the house doorbell usually meant nobody we wanted to deal with. Side doorbell meant family, friends, community, and welcome folk. So I head to the side door, thinking it was someone I wanted to see. I peeked through the window and couldn't see much. See, my grandma had this kind of jeweled window on the door, so everything was distorted when you looked through it. It looked like a young man in a red muscle shirt, which sounded on brand for one of my favourite cousins. So I opened the door super excitedly, and realised that was absolutely not who was at the door. Again, everybody in this community knew each other, and it was a predominantly Portuguese neighbourhood. So for me to open the door and see a skinny Filipino-looking guy, gold chains around his neck, a goatee, a red Chicago Bulls jersey and blue jean shorts, well, I was kind of shocked. I didn't step out of the door, and he didn't come up the 3 steps leading up to the door. I was scared this wasn't my cousin. This wasn't anybody that I knew or had ever seen. He could tell I was scared, and he wouldn't break eye contact, and tried his best to smile at me. And he said something that I will never forget. "Is Teresa there? She's my friend." My grandma's name is Teresina, but her co-workers and non-Portuguese people just call her Teresa, because that's easier. I didn't feel better though. I really didn't feel better. I said, "I'll go get her," as chipper as I could. He looked a little surprised, and I shut the door and locked it. I ran over to my grandma in the kitchen, and just started yanking the ever-loving fuck out of her shirt, asking her why she didn't open the door, telling her that a young guy was looking for her. When we went to the door, he was gone. She locked every door, and I never saw him again. I asked my grandma about him later, and she said she never knew who he was, and she told me to never answer the door alone again, and that she'd hit me with a wooden spoon if I did. Which, well, my grandma was very non-corporal punishment after I was born, So that's how serious she was. I lived in this area until I was 17 years old. Then I graduated and went off to school. I never saw him around town. I worked at a couple local markets and a supermarket across from my high school. I saw a lot of people, but never him. As bad as it sounds, this person is me. Well, a former version of myself. It is getting close to my 6-year anniversary of getting sober, and the closer to that date that we get, the more that I just can't help but think about my old self. It all started off very innocently. I fell going out my front door. In all honesty, I do have huge feet, even for a woman. I wear a size 10 in men's shoes, so I think that averages to around 11 or 12 in women's. When I fell out the door that day, it fractured my ankle. I was in bad pain for the next few weeks and on painkillers. The ER prescribed me Persicat, and I took them not exactly as prescribed, but close. I didn't overdo it by any means. Thing is, once my ankle healed, I missed that feeling, so I started looking for pills wherever I could find them. I called my mum because I knew that she would give me whatever I wanted, and I also knew that she didn't take what the doctor gave her, but had the pharmacy fill them in anyways. She had bags and bags of tramadols, so I had a supply for a little while anyways. Thing is, I didn't go crazy and take what was about 4 months worth of pills up in a week or anything. I was cautious. However, fast forward to the year we decided to move back to my hometown, and across the road from my narcissistic mother who stressed me to the point of wanting to end it all. My innocent pill habit turned into addiction. I was going to the doctor once a month, but I was going to the ER about 3 times a week at the end. I went to the ER so much, in fact, that they flagged me. The doctor came into the room and just asked me, "Do you know how many pills you've had filled in this month?" Nope, not a clue. Apparently, I had filled around 150 pain pills that month. I was flawed. It didn't stop me though. That's the thing with an addict. You just don't care. You might care at the second that you're told that kind of information, but it doesn't stay with you. If I got pills for my little ER trips, I was the easiest going person in the world to get along with. I was happy and content, on top of the world. If they didn't give me anything, I was evil and just a pure bitch. I was upset and swore that they were all out to get me. They didn't understand my pain. They were just trying to make me suffer. In the time that I was a full-blown addict, I had 2 surgeries. I had my gallbladder removed, and a pylonidal cyst. If you don't know what a pylonidal cyst is, it's horrible. It was a cyst that had formed at literally the top of my butt, and at times was the size of a golf ball. During these 2 surgeries, if I had to count the amount of pills I had, the number would be scary and staggering. I can remember going into my follow-up appointments after the surgeries, asking for more medication, because I am still in massive pain. They wrote them, of course. This was a couple of years after I'd been flagged at the ER as well. Not sure why the doctors didn't know about it, but at the time, I didn't care either. Every time I went to get my medicine filled, I was just so excited, because I knew I had a full bottle. But when that bottle got close to being empty, I started sweating bullets. I always tried to rationalize with myself. If I just take 1 a day, I'll be fine. Well, I'll break up what I have left, and just take a piece here and there. I'll be fine. By this time, I was trying to copy prescriptions. Yes, I know how stupid and illegal this is. I was also trying to get scheduled for knee surgery. Figured I would be laid up for 6 weeks with whatever I wanted then. And the simplest of things stopped me dead in my tracks. I was sitting at my mum's house one evening, but they were out of time cleaning out my purse. At this point in my addiction, I was crushing up pills, but not snorting them. I couldn't snort because of my sinus issues. My nasal passages are very narrow, and I was always afraid to snort anything. While cleaning out my purse, I pulled out about 12 cellophanes, plastic that cigarettes are wrapped in, that were covered in pill residue. I started turning them inside out and licking the residue off the plastic. I realised what I was doing and just stopped, began to cry, and immediately called my husband at work. He wasn't on break, but I figured this was serious enough to get a supervisor to grab him off the floor at work. "Hun, everything is fine at home, but I think I'm addicted to pain pills. I'm trying to find a doctor to go to. I want to do this the right way. I just had to call you and let you know what's going on." He tells me that it's fine. We will talk about it when he gets home, and that he loves me and is proud of me for figuring it out before I killed myself. At the end of the addiction, I was taking upwards of 25 pills a day. I was mixing pain pills with nerve pills. I was also having real shallow breathing at times. Now, some might judge the route that I chose to go to get clean. However, I'm 6 years clean, and alive today because of it. I chose Suboxone. I take it the way it's prescribed. I go to meetings. I help others that are having addiction issues. I'm a much better person now than I ever was way back when the addiction started. So, former self hooked on every pill known to man. Let's not ever meet again. As far as I'm concerned, former self, you are dead and buried and will never be seen again. I was up late. My anxiety and I was battling all day, and the loneliness of the night just made it stronger. It was about 2 AM. I was trying to chill in the kitchen eating an apple and some crackers. When I was done, I turned off the lights in the house, double-checked the house was locked up, then went to my room and lay down with my dog. I tried to chill out and watch some YouTube for a while. About an hour later, it's now roughly 3 AM, and my dog started freaking out. He jumped off the bed and started whining and scratching at the door. I figured he might need to go to the bathroom, so I put on his harness and his leash. I do this because my dog gets curious and tries to leave the backyard. The leash is about 15-ish feet long, so he can go to the edge of the yard and poo where he prefers to. As soon as I opened my bedroom door, he ran faster than I've ever seen him run before, tearing the leash from my hands. I ran after him and turned my phone's flashlight on. He ran out the back door, which was wide open. This obviously was not good, considering the fact I had definitely locked it an hour beforehand. I raced to grab the leash before he jumped the fence. I grabbed some good length and wrestled him onto the porch. I held the leash as tight as I could, while he was barking and lunging forward towards the bushes. They started rustling, and I could hear the sound of someone climbing over the chain link fence. I shined my flash in the direction, but saw no one. With my voice shaking, I said loud enough for whoever it was to hear, "Who's there?" No response. Short after, I saw a long branch stick out and slap repeatedly against the fence. Then whoever, or whatever was holding it, dragged it along the fence, making rhythmic pings along the way. I was absolutely frozen. After a moment of silence came a series of ch, ch, ch noises, and whoever it was started to drag the stick up and down the fence faster and faster. Right then and there, I noped the hell out of my backyard and back inside, pulling my now foaming at the mouth dog with me. Locking the door behind me, I ran to my parents' room and told them what happened. They called the police and I gave my statement. From what we can tell, the only thing missing is a 15-pound dumbbell. I can't help but think what would have happened to me if I didn't let my dog run out of my room last night, or if I had fallen asleep. Needless to say, I hope I never meet the person who tried to rob my house again. Edit. I know this seems like such a tame and mundane story, but being a small 16-year-old girl, it's pretty terrifying. This one happened last year, when I came to see a friend in Algarve, Portugal. It's a beautiful part of the country, but it has also had some rep for human trafficking some 10 to 15 years back. We were supposed to spend some time together, but my friend had to go to work, so I decided to go to the beach on my own. The place I was staying at wasn't more than a kilometre away from the beach, and one of my friend's roommates pointed me in the right direction. Well, I must have understood wrong, because I thought the beach would be past a hotel, and I suppose it was. The route to the hotel was through a park, and past the backs of a lot of buildings. But it was the middle of the day, so even if there were very few people, I didn't really worry about it too much. I'm heading through the park. The hotel seems no further than 500 metres away, when I realised that two men with dogs, that were walking quite a distance ahead of me, in the same direction, have first slowed considerably, making me close the distance, and then turned around to walk in my direction. Since almost no one was anywhere, it was just past noon, and people take siestas. It didn't make me feel comfortable, so I didn't want to walk past them, and I turned around to go in the other direction. And there were another two men, with dogs, that I've seen chat with those ahead of me briefly before they walked into the park. So I knew they knew each other. Both those ahead and those behind me were staring at me and talking to each other, but not looking at each other when talking. I had maybe 20 to 50 meters each end of space before they closed in on me. If I say I had a very visceral fear reaction, that's an understatement. I turned perpendicular, saw that somewhere 100 to 200 meters from me, there were some random other people walking, and I started speed walking in their direction. One of the pairs of men followed me for a while, but then I reached the older couple, walking, and followed them until I got to a more crowded space. Fair to say, I have not left the house without company after that, not a single time in those 3 more days. I don't know what that was all about, but I'm no scaredy cat, and I was scared. Not a situation I ever want to be in again. When I was about 7 years old, I was a member of a scouting movement. I didn't really enjoy it, to be honest, since I was never really sociable as a kid, but my parents figured that if I try it for a while, I might make some friends and have some fun. I don't exactly remember everything of what I did there, but I have a lot of vague memories of myself playing with my friends on Sunday afternoons. One memory has stayed vivid throughout the years though. As usual, it was a Sunday afternoon. It was a snowy mid-December day, and I and the rest of the kids were playing a game of tag with our supervisors outside of the building. Let me situate the area a bit. The building was at the end of a road that led to a village. The building itself was surrounded by potato fields, and there was a small but lush forest on top of a hill behind the building. Like I said, it was cold and everything was covered in a thick layer of snow. You also couldn't see more than 100 feet ahead of you, because there was a fog that accompanied the snowfall. I honestly don't understand why they didn't keep us inside and let us play there. So the game of tag started, and a group of friends and I ran towards the back of the building. Most of the kids were in the front of the building, and there was a higher chance of getting tagged there, so we figured we'd just go to the back to increase our survival chances, even when the supervisors didn't allow us to go there. The group consisted of 3 other kids that I had the most contact with. When we all arrived at the back of the building, we quietly stood behind the wall so that the supervisors nor the other kids knew that we were there. I recall closing my eyes and faintly hearing the kids screaming in the background. The building was pretty long, so I figured we must have been about 82 feet away from the rest. While one of my friends was checking to see if no one was coming our way, I was talking to the other 2 of our group. However, we weren't talking for long, as quickly after that, we heard the sound of a branch snapping coming from the small woods in front of us. Between us and the woods was about 32 feet of grassland covered in snow, and we were still little kids, so we were expecting some wild animal to run towards us, but one of the kids brushed it off and told us to focus on the game. When I looked back at the tree line, about 10 seconds later, there was a man standing next to one of the thin birches with his left hand placed on the tree. I remember that the man was wearing a black coat and a pair of jeans. He was bald, and it was hard to make out his facial features. At first I screamed, and the other kids asked me what was wrong. I pointed my finger at the man who was standing next to the tree. They all screamed too, but our screams mustn't have been that loud, because no supervisor came rushing towards us. The man kept standing at the tree, not moving an inch. One of the kids stated that we should try hurry back to the rest of the group as fast as possible. My heart was racing, and I could barely move. Just like in one of those dreams in which you want to run away from something, but you can't. As I kept staring at the man, it looked as if his skin had grown over his eyes, and his mouth looked wide, wider than what is considered normal. Then, out of bloody nowhere, the man slowly started to walk towards us. I remember that I somehow had the courage to scream at it. It didn't say anything back. We certainly didn't want to wait for the man to reach us either, so we ran back to the front of the building where the rest of the group was. Once we reached the rest of the kids, one of the kids in the group ran inside, to the senior supervisor. I turned around to look at it again, but when I did, the man was gone. All I saw was a tree line and our footsteps in the snow. Sometime later, 3 supervisors, including the senior supervisor, went to look behind the building. They came back saying that they didn't see anything, and that it was alright. We got a warning because we cheated, and they told our parents about the incident. Ever since, I think about it once in a while, and I wonder who or what it was, and what would have happened if I'd have stayed there, frozen by fear in the snow behind the building. After the incident, I think it's no surprise that I quit the movement. This happened back in 2014, when I was 18 years old, and I'm a pretty small petite female. My friend, also a small petite female, and I were getting ready to go out to a party that evening, but decided halfway through getting ready, we wanted to stop by right here to get a couple of things. Makeup half done, hair done, in sweats. It's maybe 8 or 9 PM, so it's dark out, but not super busy. The parking spaces are all lines against the building. There is a van parked pretty close to the entrance. We parked a couple of spaces down from it, further away from the entrance. As we are literal steps away from the entrance to the store, we hear a man behind us yell, "Hey, mind helping me?" Laughing weirdly. "I can't carry all this weight by myself into the store." He was carrying 2 small children that looked asleep, maybe a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old on both shoulders passed out. He started walking towards us, in which I said, no. And we quickly hurried into the store. Creeped out, we waited until the van left, which they weren't. So the guy never came into the store, and wasn't planning on it. He instead put the children back into the van and stayed in his car. Thinking back now, we probably should have alerted someone or called the cops to check on the kids, but I was very startled and confused. Instead, I called my boyfriend at the time, who I knew was driving around with his friends, waiting for us to get ready for the party, and he sped to the store, and screeched into the parking lot so quickly right next to the van. I'm sure startling the van, which then took off before my boyfriend and his friends could even get out of the car. We told the checkout clerk, as we were ringing up, that maybe they should check it out, but they didn't take us seriously, so we left and went on with our night. Looking back, if we had been more naive, and walked up to him to help him, I'm positive he would have tried to kidnap us. I hope that the kids he had with him are okay. Dude with 2 passed out kids in front of right here needing help. Let's not meet. I have 2 dogs who don't really bark in the middle of the night. The smaller dog sleeps in my parents' room because he's older and has accidents inside nowadays, so they have to let him out in the night on occasion. My big old boxer, Pit Mix, Blueberry, sleeps on the couch or in his dog bed in the front living room. We have only 1-story house, which makes it easier to hear if Blue's barking, needs out or whatever. Unlike my smaller dog Rascal, Big Boy rarely barks, so when he does, we take it seriously. Last night at about 1 AM, I decided to go to sleep. Once I shut out my lights and stuff, I heard a bark. Before going to check it out, I listened to see if he kept going. I then left my room, went down the hallway, and watched my dog barking at the front door. This was weird behaviour, and I thought it would have woken my parents up for sure. He apparently saw something, and ran to the side window to bark more aggressively. Keep in mind, while he is part pit, my dog is very sweet and goofy most of the time, never ever aggressive. He even cowers to my smaller Jack Russell Rascal. After the barking got more intense, I got my phone and went towards the back of the house to my parents' room. Blueberry continued to bark while my dad got his gun. My mum and I waited a second, but then I told her that we should go and turn on the TV because we have cameras around the house that are viewed through the TV. Her and I went to turn it on, but no one was outside and all seemed normal. Once my dog stopped barking, which was after a total of about 4 minutes, we rolled back the footage. We watched a car go past my house. We then saw that same car stop at the stop sign, reverse, park, and shut off their lights. A man in a hoodie got out of the car and walked through my yard up the driveway. He then proceeded to go to the driver's side of my parents' truck and stand there for a bit while looking inside the window. That side of the truck is right next to the window Blueberry was barking so ferociously at. The hooded man only stood there for a few minutes before he left. I'm assuming that my dog's bark scared the guy off out of fear it would wake us up. Afterwards, we kept telling Blue, "Good boy," and he got all excited. He rolled around and sneezed for like 10 minutes before we went to bed. Unfortunately, the cameras were not super good quality at night, so we didn't get a play, and the guy's face was hidden the whole time. It was probably pretty random though, because my neighbourhood is off of a busy street which makes for an easy getaway. Luckily, everything is fine, and my puppa is the goodest boy. Guy with the hood trying to steal our stuff? Let's not meet. Unless I can bring my dog. This incident just occurred a few hours ago, and it's still making my head spin. Forgive me if it seems lengthy, but but an awful lot was said. My mother, sister and I, female and 18 years old, were shopping in our local Target. As we stroll around, I recognised a girl named Stacey, also 18 years old, that I used to go to school with. For reference, I dropped out of high school my senior year, so I haven't been in my old high school or seen anyone from there for about a year now. I simply glance at her and keep on moving, doubting that she recognised me because I haven't been in school for a year. A few minutes later, I'm on the complete opposite side of the store when I see this girl again. Like last time, our eyes awkwardly met and I tried to just walk past her, but this time she actually said something. "Hey, didn't we play tennis together?" Stacey spoke with wide eyes and a painfully large smile. There was a girl standing next to her, but I didn't recognise her. I simply replied a yes in response. I was never friends with her in high school. In fact, I never talked to her, or even liked her. That's when she introduced herself, as if I completely forgot who she was. She goes on to question if I still went to high school, in which I explained that I graduated early with online classes. The conversation started out normal. I thought it was simply us catching up due to the fact that I had been absent from school. I kept wanting to cut the conversation short, but Stacey kept prodding about what I was doing now. Am I in college? And what was college like? Harmless questions. In fact, I didn't mind answering her questions. But then the conversation took an unexpected twist. Stacey somehow weaseled the conversation into one about God and Christianity. For reference, I do consider myself a Christian, but not one of those hardcore ones who are constantly spewing Bible quotes at strangers. She asks me if I attend church, to which I responded with yes. Her eyes became even wider, and her smile even bigger. Her whole mantra of God sounded like this. "Back in my high school days, I was always partying and being so happy, but that was all fake, and no one knew that I was actually pretty sad. That's when I found this church that showed me God's way and His undying love. He accepted me, and He'll accept you too. Now I am always happy, for I have God on my side. And at this church, God truly appears before your very eyes. He cured me of all my physical and mental ailments, like when I messed up my knee in tennis." The whole time Stacey spoke, there was a just robotic tone about it, as if these words were memorized, practiced, and rehearsed. There was almost no genuine emotion in her, just wide eyes and a never-failing smile. Then her friend Ashley, late teens or early 20s, began her speech. Keep in mind my mother and sister are just an aisle away waiting on me. Ashley's speech went like this. "For a while in life, I suffered with depression and suicide. I always faked being happy, until I found this church. This church truly opened my eyes and heart. I no longer feel dead inside." This is when she hinted that maybe I feel dead inside too, and the only way to recover from it was to look to God. Ashley also used the word zombie to describe this dead feeling, and that's when I began to really think that there's something wrong with these girls. Ashley continued on, saying, "I don't think it's a mere coincidence that we ran into you. God led me to you. He wanted me to reveal you a way. God put a vision in my mind of you opening a present. And that present is our Lord and Saviour." She kept on ranting how this is destiny that we met, and that God put Stacey and Ashley in my path to reveal Himself to me. When Ashley mentioned depression and suicide, I could not help but believe her for a slight second. I had been struggling with depression for years, but kept it quiet. And with me being a believer of God, I was almost fooled into thinking that this is a sign from God telling me to finally open up and get help. But when Ashley began to ramble about her church, that foolish hope I had dissipated quickly. Then the two moved the conversation onto their church. They kept stating that it was not a normal church, and that God Himself, in flesh and blood, came to them at the church. They informed me that God came to them to heal them of their misery and grief. Ashley then pulled out a business card, which had the church's email, a Bible quote, and her personal phone number. Before the anticipated departure, they kept saying how cool I am, and that they're glad they met me, and then we finally parted ways. I remember my legs being extremely weak when I walked away. That's when in my mind it clicked. Are they a part of some cult? Their mannerisms and behaviour seemed too scripted to be real. That's when my sister found me and answered my suspicions. Apparently, before I had to endure that 10-minute chat with Stacey and Ashley, My sister overheard the girls were having the same conversation with another girl on the opposite side of the store. So this was all scripted, and it was their way of luring and persuading strangers to join their church. I realise now how they do it too. To reel me into their discussion, they discussed about my absence from school and experience in college. To reel in the other girl they talked with, they started by complimenting her outfit and inquiring about their artistic hobbies. I wonder how many people they ended up talking to, and if they were just walking around the store hoping to find easy targets to talk to. I have so many questions, and that's what bothers me the most about this. And being the somewhat religious person that I am, their talk of God unnerved me. It's sort of humorous to think of now, simply because I think crazy God lovers are comical, but I'm still bewildered. If you have any information about how cults operate and how they coax people into joining them, please let me know. Does this instance sound like cult members trying to spread their message, or harmless teenage girls simply spreading the love of God? If you have any questions about what occurred in my interaction with them, please ask. Also, it's possible that I'll see Stacey again, because she's attending my college next semester. Although Stacey initially seemed harmless and just overly excited about God, I honestly hope that we never meet again. I'm not sure if I can post pictures on here, but I do have his real face in a selfie he sent me. So if I am allowed to post it, please let me know and tell me how to do it. I have had some stories taken down before because they apparently sound like I made it up or something. I'm not good at explaining things, I guess, because they have all been true. If it sounds weird, just bear with me because I have autism and I'm doing my best. I promise this is still happening, and I don't know what to do anymore. I need advice. So anyways, let me start from the beginning. One day, I was on Instagram and I noticed this follow request. I'm set on private, so people who want to follow me have to request me. I see that this guy is really cute, so I accept. At the time, I was talking online with this guy that I met on Tinder, so when the man from Instagram DM'd me, I ignored it. The guy from Tinder ended a couple of days later, so I messaged the Instagram guy back. He told me that he was in love with me and to text him on WhatsApp. I agreed and downloaded the app. We started talking and he seemed like a really cool guy. Not to mention, he was really fucking hot. A couple of days went by and we were getting sexy on the app, and I sent him some pictures of my upper half. He never sent any back, which annoyed me, but whatever. At this time, I was living alone in an apartment and taking the bus to go places. At one point, he told me he needed this game card worth $100 so that he could download Skype so he could video chat with me. He never did. And I was like, fuck no, are you kidding me? After an hour of pestering me, he convinces me to take the bus to Best Buy, and I buy it for him. Not even 5 minutes later, and he says that he needs another $20 one, because the first one wasn't enough. I get pissed, but he talks me into buying it. The way I sent it to him was scratching off the part with the code and sending a picture of the code to him through the app. Now, I have to admit that at the time, my gut feeling was making me feel sick, because it was so strong telling me that something is wrong, and that he's a love scammer. I ignore it because every other time I've had a gut feeling, it's always just me being paranoid, so I thought it was that again. Wrong. A couple of days later, I just got off work and walked up to a Target to get a coffee while waiting for my bus home, and he needs a $50 card for something, but I don't remember what. I buy it for him and tell my mum it's for groceries. I know, it was stupid. I thought he loved me, and I loved him. I take the bus home and that was that. I'm going out with him by this point, and at this time I've sent him over 10 photos of me. He apparently saved them, but more on that later. So one day, I wake up to a text from him, explaining that he wants to marry me. All this time he's been planning a trip to come see me for the first time, which never happened. So I'm like, oh my god, what the fuck? He gives me an email address to the base, and I'm supposed to tell them that I'm his fiancée. I end up emailing them, but tell them I'm his girlfriend. We are not engaged, but in order to actually get engaged, I get an email back, and I need to fill out this form and pay over $600 for it. Even though I thought I was in love with him, I never truly fell in love with him, like I did in the past. In every relationship, my heart skips boyfriend-girlfriend love and goes straight to madly in love. It ends up driving the guy away, and I get heartbroken. But not this time. I always wondered why he was different, and even though I always said, "I love you" to him, I didn't truly feel like I had in the past. This $600 plus was my breaking point. I FaceTime my sister because I go to her for everything. If anyone always knows what to say or do, it's her. She's my best friend. So I explain the situation, and she lets me know gently that he indeed is a love scammer, and that I need to end it with him. I feel this feeling of sadness because even though I never really felt close to him, I really thought he loved me. She tells me how to end it and what to say, letting him down gently but firmly. And I do. I delete the app and I think that's the end of it. I don't delete my account on the app, just the app itself. Later in the week I get a text from an unknown number saying, "Hi, how are you?" I'd forgotten about this guy, so I have no idea who it is. He tells me his real name, and I tell this person to send a selfie, so I know who I'm talking to. He sends me a picture, which is a man in his maybe late 60s, saying his real name, and I make the connection to a love scammer. I tell him to stop and to leave me alone and block the number. A while later, I get an email from him, and I had given my email, so I'm so surprised that he remembered it, but he tells me that I hurt him, and if I don't get back with him, he'll post my nudes on social media. I go into panic mode, but my mum tells me not to respond to him because he's probably bullshitting me to get me to respond. I listen to my mum. I keep getting texts from different numbers from different states. Him. After I'd blocked him. In one text he told me he's going to blackmail me because I hurt him, and if I don't respond, he's going to post my nudes to social media, friends, and family and work people. I moved back home with my parents and got a new job that he's unaware of, but I still panicked. I saved the texts and calls from him as evidence, just in case, and he keeps texting me from all kinds of numbers. Something to know about me. I'm 22 years old, but in a final attempt to regain control, I lie, telling him that not only I lied about my age and I'm really only 16 years old, but if he does in fact actually post the nudes, he'll be arrested for posting child porn. I do it to scare him, and that if it doesn't stop him, I'll go to the police and press charges on him. He responds with, "Go on, if you go to the police I'll post your nudes." So that didn't work. Time for plan B. Apologise to him for hurting him and try to make amends with him, so maybe I'm on his good side, he'll forgive me and not post them. He says it's okay, but he really is in love with me for real, not just a scam that he said he loves me. He then asks me to send him $50 for something, and I tell him that it's out of the question. He says okay, I'll have to post them then. I say to him that not only do I have the right to say no, but that I'm no longer in any romantic relationship with him, and that if I ever did want to help him out, I don't. I have no physical way of getting what he needs. When I tell him that I'm single and I'm not in a relationship with him, he responds with the word, "impossible," and I tell him, "Do not contact me again," and block him again. He had told me that if I don't spend money on him and basically obey his every will, then I don't love him and want to go for free. And I just roll my eyes and think to myself, fuck you, fuckstick. I block him again, and when, not if, he messages me again, I will not be answering him back. I almost forgot to mention that I had asked if he was actually going to post them, and he said no because he loves me and he just wants me back in his life. I feel much better knowing that he's full of shit, and I have nothing to worry about. So, anyways, how is he contacting me with all these numbers? He has said that the people won't let him out of the base, and basically made it clear to me that he has no way of finding me physically. Thank God. So he clearly has very strict and limited access to anything there. How is he contacting me with new numbers all the time? And from numbers of different states too. It doesn't sound like he has access to multiple phones. What do I do? I just want this to be over already. I searched both of his fake and real names on social media, and he doesn't have any. So this isn't one of my paranormal experiences at the local port, but it still creeps me out when I think about it. A lot of spooky shit happens to me for some reason, but that's beside the point. Last year, 2018, was a very busy year for me. meaning that I had little to no time to date or meet any girls. Due to my busy schedule, I decided to make a Tinder account. I have never had any experience with such app or online dating, and I didn't actually plan on meeting up with a random girl to go on a blind date or anything. I just wanted to see what all the fuss was about, and if that shit actually worked. So, the app still being something new to me, I matched with this really pretty girl. She seemed short, light-skinned, and had a nice smile. Her account wasn't a catfish or any sort of fake profile. It seemed genuine and legit. Anyway, I know that I didn't actually want to hit it off with any girl in this manner, but she was very hot and I said, fuck it. So I slid into her DMs with the simple, hey. A couple of hours went by and we got each other's Snapchat users and phone numbers. We exchanged Snapchat photos, so with that said, there was no way that her Tinder account was fake. I felt better knowing that for some reason. She said that she lived in the city that was about 25 to 30 miles north of mine. I had nothing planned for the next day, and neither did she, so we decided to meet up at her house the next day to mess around. The next day came by and we planned to meet around 10:30 PM. The neighbouring city where she was from was about a 30 to 45 minute drive from my place, so around 10 PM-ish, I decided to start driving over. As I'm driving over, I get a phone call from her telling me to instead go over at a later time, around midnight. I didn't mind, since I had friends who lived in her city, so I paid them a visit while I waited for her. 11:45 PM rolled by and I started to drive to her place. My friends didn't know what I was up to, they just thought I popped in to visit them randomly. So this girl sent me her address, and at first, the address that she had sent me led to this upper-class suburban neighbourhood. I reached the address, and it was close to what I would describe as a white mansion. I called her to tell her that I was parked in her driveway, and I asked her to come outside so I could assure myself that I was at the right place. She said, I don't see you. Are you sure you followed the directions? Well, to avoid any more fuck-ups, she just sent me her current location for iMessage. At first, I found it odd, but I followed the directions to the location anyway. So midnight rolled by, and I was on my way to her current location, which was actually kind of far from the address that she had originally sent me. As I'm driving, the directions are telling me to drive off the path and into a dirt road surrounded by cornfields. This spooked me a little, because I was now in the middle of nowhere. I was about 10 minutes away from any civilization. Red flags started to go off in my head, but I ignored them because there is no way that her account could have been set up. I had seen her pictures on Snapchat, and you can't Photoshop those, as far as I'm aware. So after driving through a dark-ass dirt road through the cornfields, the directions led me to a broken-down old house. It looked uninhabitable. There were no cars outside, or in the driveway. The only light I saw around was a porch light. I called this girl to tell her that I'm outside. She replies with, okay, I'll be right out. On a side note, I'm a pretty big dude, and I train every day. I'm not intimidated by others. But there are some situations where you're helpless and have no option but to evade for the fear of your life. So I'm waiting by my car, and then I see this figure come to the front of the door. And it was dressed like a fucking nun. Black veil, long black dress, voodoo charms, and she's also holding a fucking voodoo doll on her left hand. I was pretty spooked out, but I thought it was just a prank. I gave it a few seconds for the cameras to pop out. But the person just stood there. I slowly started to realise that this wasn't a prank, because a few seconds later, I saw another figure in a similar black outfit peeking out of the door, and starting to make a run towards me, with a fucking machete. I don't even bother trying to fight back, because I knew I was probably going to end up gutted, or skinned alive by these psychos. I immediately jumped into the car, and floored the fuck out of there. I then heard gunshots a few seconds later behind me. I'm in my car screaming prayers with tears in my eyes, because I was hoping to drive away with my life. Her number then kept calling me as soon as I left. I blocked it, and then another number started to call me, and I blocked that one as well. I ended up staying over at my friend's house that night. I explained everything that took place, and he wanted to go check it out together with our group of friends, but I was too terrified to even go back there. I called the police and they went to go check it out, but the place was abandoned by the time I got there. They said that the address had been vacant for years, and they simply made a report out of it, but they were never found. The whole thing was a sick setup to begin with. The girl was planning on luring me, so they could do God knows what to me. I deleted my Tinder account. I'm pretty sure it works if you're only looking to get laid, but I somehow had the worst luck the first time I ever decided to use it. Don't ever meet a stranger somewhere that isn't public. Shit can always go sideways. When I was 12, me and a group of my friends would play hide and seek in these woods that were on the edge of our neighbourhood. We would always play around 6, but had to be back by 10:30 at the latest on a weekend. And we weren't allowed to go so far that we couldn't see our houses. Those were the only rules that our parents had for us. Well, one Friday, we were out playing in the woods as usual, and I, for whatever reason, decided to go deeper into the woods. I can't remember how far I went into those woods, but what I do remember is coming across an old shack. I considered using it as a hiding place, but then I thought that they wouldn't come this deep into the woods to look for me, so I decided to head back. However, when I started to head back, I turned my head to look at the shack one last time, and for a split second, I saw someone peeking out the door. Whoever it was quickly turned their head back when they saw me. I didn't pay too much attention to it and headed back. About halfway through my walk, I hear, "Psst, hey kid, come over here." I looked back and saw an old man hiding behind a tree, gesturing me to come to him. I knew better and took off running. While I was running, I heard him yelling, "Wait!" and I could also hear the sounds of his footsteps running after me. When I got to the end of the woods, I ran into my friends who were wondering where I was. I told them to get out of the woods, and we ran to our friend's house. I told them what happened, and eventually I told my mum what happened too. My parents called the police to search the woods for the old man, but I don't know if they ever found him or not. Our parents never let us play in those woods ever again after that. But even if they had, I would never go back. This happened a few months ago, and I didn't realise how weird it was until I told my boyfriend about it a few months later. At my college, our student IDs are pretty much essential to have. They get you into all of the academic buildings, and get you all your food on the meal plan. I had lost mine, and was forced to go get a new one. I went to the security desk and told the security guard that I lost my ID and needed a new one made. He said, "No problem, just come with me while I print you a new one." He was older. If I had to guess, I would say about 65, but in very good shape. Definitely over 6 foot, and you could tell he was attractive when he was younger. He had curly grey hair, very well kept, and nice blue eyes. We went to the back of the security room in the main students' common building. It was a room that was a little ways back, but still had a good amount of foot traffic going by it. I walked in and sat on the couch that was across from the desk. When he walked in, he closed the door. He went on the computer at the desk and asked me for all my information: student ID number, name, birthday, class year. When he pulled up my account, he saw my picture that I used for my ID. He asked me if I wanted a new picture taken for the new ID, and I said no, I'm good, because I don't like my picture being taken. But I also looked like a mess, because I wasn't expecting to need a new picture taken. He then said, "Well, your picture is very good. You look pretty. Most are bad." I laughed and said thank you, and told him I was a senior in high school and got that taken at orientation almost 3 years ago. I'm a senior. And he said, "Well, you must have always been pretty." I started to feel weird then, but it's a security officer at my college, and it's known for having great security. He then said that the computer wasn't letting him print one without taking a new picture since it was so old. He told me, "If you need to get a new ID, make sure you get a new picture after 2 years because people can change in looks, and we need to make sure it's you, and have good confirmation." Okay. You just asked me if I wanted a new one, but are now telling me I need a new one? I found this weird because I thought if it was the case, he would have known in the beginning. But again, he is a security officer, and I needed this stupid ID. I said okay, and he said he would set everything up. He went into a closet within the security room, and got out a camera on a tripod and told me to stand up against the wall. I did, and smiled awkwardly. He told me I needed to take my hair out of the bun, because the hair needed to be down for the ID picture. Okay. But I didn't think much of this either, as I had never seen any girl's ID without their hair down, which I now realise is just preference. He took a picture and said my eyes were closed. I laughed because my eyes are closed in 9 out of 10 pictures I take. Another reason I don't like my picture being taken. He said, "It's fine. I don't mind taking a couple. He then came over and told me my hair looked awkward, so he was just going to fix it for me, so I liked the picture better. He fixed my hair, and I pulled my head back and said, "It's good. I really don't care, no one's gonna look at it." He rolled his eyes and said, "Whatever, it's your picture, but it would look better if I fixed it." Again, I said, "It's fine, don't worry." Just trying to be polite. After the next picture, I saw a clock on the wall and realised I only had 10 minutes before class. I said, "You can just use whatever when I don't have my eyes closed in, because I have class in 10 minutes, so I kind of have to go." He said, "Your professor isn't going to get mad if you see we're getting an ID from security, and it took a while." At this point, I realised I'd been in there for over 20 minutes, and I wasn't nervous, but more so sick of being there, and wanted out. He then told me they'd take a few minutes to print and to just wait on the couch. He then talked to me, asking me what my major is, if I have a boyfriend. I do, so I said yes. He asked how long we'd been dating and said, You know guys in college are no good. They'll just waste your time. You should break up with them and find someone older and more mature." Whatever, dude. Just give me my ID. I didn't respond to that and just said, "Okay, well, I'm going to go because I can't be late for class, so would I just be able to pick it up at the desk after class?" He huffed and then said, "What a rush you're in, but it should be ready now, hold on." He then went from the desk to the back of the room where the printer was and grabbed my ID. He said, "Wow, the picture is even better. I'm a pretty good photographer if I do say so myself," and winked. He kept holding the ID, not handing it to me. I was annoyed at this point, but I'm really bad at being assertive. I said, "I'm sorry, but I do really have to go." And he laughed and said, Okay. I would think a senior wouldn't be nervous about being a little late." Then handed me the ID. I basically snatched it out of his hands and he said, "Well, I'll walk you out, because you aren't supposed to be going back here with that security guard. I wouldn't want you getting in trouble." I'm thinking, oh my god, just let me go. So he walked me out and I said thanks, and basically ran out of the building. I'm not gonna lie, I thought it was weird and flirty, but I had never needed to get an ID made before, so I just thought that's how the process was, and that he was just a little too flirty with the situation. So I never said anything to anyone. With 3 weeks left of school, I somehow managed to lose my ID. I'd been borrowing my boyfriend's because I was super busy at the end of the year and just thought, I really don't have half an hour to spare to get a new ID. Finally, my boyfriend got annoyed with me using his meal plan, and always having his ID, and he said, "You need to go get a new one. It takes 5 minutes tops." I said, "No it doesn't. It took half an hour. I don't have time for that." He asked me what the hell I was talking about, and I told him what happened. He said, "No, that is not okay at all. You need to report that." I said I didn't care enough, but I asked him to come with me to get a new ID. When I went to go get a new one, it was a different security guard, and he said, "Yeah, no problem. Just wait here, I'll be back in a minute." Not even 5 minutes later, he was back with a new one made. I told him what happened last time, and he looked very concerned. He asked who the security guard was. I didn't know his name, but I described him. He gave me the name and office of the head security guard and told him he would call and tell them I was coming over. I went and talked to the head security officer, and he told me what happened was not at all protocol, and he looked in the system and saw over 30 pictures taken of me. He reported it to higher-ups. I had to go in and speak to a group of 3 people in administration, and they let me know that he was fired and would not be allowed on campus again, and to notify them if I see him again. I know it doesn't sound that crazy like most of the stories on here, and I really don't feel like I was in danger, but I think I was too naive to feel that at the time. I trusted every security guard, but I have no idea what his intentions were. So, this happened when I was 16, visiting my grandma, who lives in a small town in Poland. Just for context, it was summer, and my family wasn't with me at the time. As you can imagine, living without my parents for a short time, my grandma's really chill, was a dream. I could stay out as late as I wanted to, without my parents being able to prove it. Now, at 16, you feel like you're invincible. You don't really think about how many fucked up people there are in this world. Because of this mindset, I wasn't worried about walking alone at night. The day on which this story takes place was very hot. I remember shopping and hanging out with my friends until about 8 PM when it started to rain. Instead of walking home quickly, I decided to visit my aunt's house, hang out with my cousin for a bit, and walk home when the rain stopped. Well, I lost track of time, and ended up leaving her house at about 10:30 PM. At this point the rain had mostly stopped, and this being my favourite type of weather, I declined my aunt's offer to drive me back, telling her I was getting a cab. I'm still surprised she believed this, but maybe she just didn't care. So I went on my way, called my grandma to tell her that I'd be back in about 30 minutes, but not telling her that I was walking alone. If there was one thing that scared me, it were the huge train tracks which you had to cross in order to get to my grandma's house the fastest. So I decided to take the long way around, through some sort of nature preserve. I'm not sure how to call it. I enjoyed my walk through the light rain, until the long metal bridge came into my view. Just at its beginning, I saw a man. It was a small, quiet town, so it wasn't common for the people here to be out this late, but I wasn't scared immediately. I only saw his back, but he looked like every other guy who'd pass on the street. He didn't seem to notice me, and I didn't really care. I got distracted looking at the trees to my left, but when I came to the beginning of the bridge, the man was nowhere to be seen. I suddenly stopped dead in my tracks, and got an ominous feeling. This man couldn't have already been out of my view. It would have been impossible for him to move this fast. He would have had to run, and I definitely would have heard him running across the metal bridge. At the end of the bridge, there was a small path that led under it, which was hidden by thick bushes. I got even more scared by the thought that he was hiding there, waiting for me. I slowly started to walk backwards, not taking my eyes off the bushes. I hid behind a tree and decided to wait a few minutes to see if he was hiding there. After about 10 minutes, my biggest fear came true. Suddenly, the man emerged from the bushes, looking in my direction. He was holding something big and shiny. I could make out in the dark that it was a knife. My mind started racing with 1,000 questions. How did he see me? Why didn't I see the knife before? Where was he hiding it? He suddenly started running in my direction. So fast. He ran straight past me, hiding behind the tree, and I was so relieved. When he was out of sight, I ran faster than I ever ran, not stopping to look behind me, being frightened the whole way back, thinking that he'd somehow find me and do whatever sick thing he had in mind. Luckily, I arrived home safely, my grandma waiting for me already mad. I decided not to tell her what happened, partially not to worry her, but also so she wouldn't tell my parents about our secret curfew. Looking back, this was one of the stupidest lies I've ever told, because of what happened a month after this incident. 2 teenage girls, about my age, were stabbed dozens of times by this bridge. One body was found about 30 meters from it. The other one was thrown into the nearby river. To this day, nobody knows who did it, but I'm pretty sure that it was the same man whom I've encountered. I was too scared to come out and tell anyone about what had happened, but I can't help but feel that those 2 girls would be alive today if it wasn't for my stupidity. Okay, before I start, I just want to say sorry in advance for grammar and spelling errors. I'm American and a native English speaker. I have no excuse. Anyway, on with the story. I've posted on here before about my work experience, but today it's about my mum. My mum is pretty amazing. Having had 5 open heart surgeries in the past 4 years, she's been in and out of the hospital and has gained so many friends in the process. One being a stalker. Usually, when I think of a stalker, I think of some weird guy who won't stop following you or leave you alone. I've watched and read one too many bad stories. But this stalker is actually just a few years older than myself, and just a girl who probably wants friends, but is going about it in a weird way. I'll call her Tina. I know it sounds bad, but this girl is acting crazy obsessed with my parents. Mostly my mum. Both my older sister and I have moved out, and are living our lives away from our mum's house. We are roughly an hour away at most from her. Well, Tina found our Facebooks, Snapchats, Instagrams, heck, even our TikToks. It really wasn't hard to find because internet. And friend requested us. Now, I've only met this girl once, and my mum told me to be nice to her and just go with the flow. She's awkward as hell, and yeah, I can relate to that because I am too. I don't like talking to new people. Anyway, after she messaged me on Snapchat, I noticed that whenever she wanted to talk to me, it would be asking about how my mum is. So whenever I said I didn't know because I don't live with her, she'd shut up and go somewhere else. This progresses into me finding out that she's not only been messaging me, but my older sister, my brother, and my dad. All about my mum. How she got my brother's info is beyond me, since he doesn't have that many social media stuff. When we all band together to talk to my mum about it, she's like, yeah, she's getting weird, I know, but won't do anything. We still get messages, and it's gotten to the point where I've just blocked her number on my phone and ignored everything. But I have pages and pages of messages from her. Just one-sided. All about my mum. She's made countless fake accounts, all to talk to us about my mum. I even found out that she's calling my mum babe. Tina really needs to stop, and she won't listen. When telling her that if she doesn't, we'll report her, my mum argues with us and tells us she'll handle it, but never does. Just today, I found out she made my parents her Facebook profile pic. I'm so flabbergasted that my mum won't do anything about this. It's going crazy, and my sister and I think it's insane. Tina has apparently done this before, according to my sister. They used to work together. I don't know what to do with my mother. But Tina, I hope I never see you again. So I know you may go through my post history, and see I post no sleep quite a bit. This 100% happened, and I assure you I'm not exaggerating. Take this how you will, but I really need some insight on this. The backstory. I've never experienced sleep paralysis in my life until recently. The first time it happened, I wasn't able to move, and I tried my hardest to scream or yell, or make some connection to the real world through physical action. I saw a giant pink head floating above me, and I started freaking out. Once I was able to move, I flailed and realised it was just the pink curtains I had above my couch. I sleep on the couch, despite having a bed. It's more comfortable for me. The second time it happened, I saw the pink head again, but I realised it was sleep paralysis, and my terror quelled. I've been taking an off-brand of Unisom recently, because it helps me to sleep, and I typically don't dream. If I don't take sleeping pills, I usually have vivid and terrible nightmares. I know this isn't healthy, but it helps me. The lead up to the incident. I went to New York recently for work. I drove 12 hours there, which went by quite quickly because of the podcast I was listening to. Work was great, and when it was time to leave, I chose to drive home at night to avoid traffic. On my drive home, a tornado watch hit, and the rain began coming down super hard. I was in Pennsylvania at the time, and took an exit saying, the Poconos. I don't know if it was the actual mountains, but it didn't seem mountainous. I pulled into an abandoned gas station parking lot and pulled in towards the back. There were no cars around, and the station was chained off. The rain passed, and as it did, I passed out. I had a very vivid dream of me running on all fours chasing a horse through the fog, until I lost the horse, and instead saw 3 people in hooded robes. They pointed behind me, and when I looked, I was in a house loaded with antiques and fish hooks hanging from the ceiling. The only thing I can describe as to what I saw next was a porcelain Picasso painting come to life. It stumbled around the corner and tried chasing me through the fish hooks. The incident. I woke up from the nightmare and was experiencing sleep paralysis. In an unfamiliar area, in a state I never go to, alone in my car at 2 o'clock at night, in an abandoned gas station parking lot, just after a heavy thunderstorm. Needless to say, I was petrified. I couldn't move or scream, and I realised my doors were unlocked. I imagine I see a man staring at me through the driver's side window, smiling a cartoonishly big smile. I know that this is cliché and a little dumb, but it was horrifying for me. When I snap out of my sleep paralysis, I look out the driver's side window, and the man is gone. What I saw instead sent chills down my spine. Next to me in this abandoned lot was an SUV parked right next to me. It was a very large parking lot, so to park next to me seems odd, even thinking back. There was no one in the SUV, and I did a quick scan of the parking lot and saw no one. I checked my clock and was amazed to see that only 30 minutes had passed. I started my car and did a slow roll through the parking lot, desperately hoping I could see someone that the SUV may belong to. But there was no one in sight. I got the hell out of there and merged back onto the interstate, which had no cars on whatsoever. Conclusion. I have no idea what to make of this. I know that my sleep paralysis demon is inspired by a real object near me. Was this an actual dude looking at me while I was paralysed? There was definitely a person around at some time since there was an SUV next to me. I don't think this was paranormal in any way, but was just unfortunate timing. Either way, I really don't want to meet whoever that was again. Do any of you have any thoughts on what this could have been? Or am I just being stupid and paranoid? Sorry this wasn't as crazy as some of the other stories on here, but this really hit me hard. Thank you for reading. This whole experience was awful. My husband and I were on a trip in Asia with our son, who was about 6 months old at the time. His eyes were very large and beautiful, and people always commented on it. We had met another American couple and hit it off. We were sitting and chatting a bit late at night in an open-air restaurant. We were having a couple of beers and playing cards, making some plans to go explore the city the next day. The baby was sleeping in his baby carrier, and even though it was a bit late at night, there were a lot of people walking around. We had just ordered our last beer, deciding we were going to head back to our hotels to get some sleep. Suddenly, we noticed a man stop and just start staring at my sleeping baby. My husband and one of our friends stands in front of me and the baby, while the man points a bony finger at his wide eyes. The eyes. Husband, who has a bit more of a temper. What the hell are you talking about? His eyes. The baby is still sleeping, and I cuddle him closer to me, completely confused and a bit freaked out. Eyes. My husband steps towards him and screams at him to get away from us now. The man scuttles off and disappears into the crowd. We all quickly finish our beers and head back to the hotel, keeping our eyes out for the man. Our friend said he thought the guy was going to try and snatch the baby, and we talked about how strange it was. We went to bed and spent the next day exploring the city a bit. The other couple went home the day after that. The day after our friends left, we were at a restaurant eating lunch. This time the baby was sitting down, eating some yogurt. We see the same man walking down the street. He stops and stares again. Eyes. My husband, a bit annoyed and amused. Yes, he has eyes. Leave, now. He then wandered off, never to be seen again. This is a long post, and needs a possible trigger warning, but no actual assault occurred. When I was 17, I was going to school with my younger brother Jack, who was 16. We were super close, and at the time this happened, had a good mutual friend who we hung out with all the time, Martin. One day after school, we'd all planned for the three of us to hang out at mine and Jack's house. At the end of the day, while we were waiting for Jack's mum, my stepmother, to pick us three up, a guy we kind of knew, Greg, who was my age, came up to us and started talking to us and asking us what we were doing after school, where we were going, etc. Now, as much as we tried at first, we weren't friends with this kid, and although he didn't come to school often, he just generally made everyone uncomfortable. Always making uncomfortable, inappropriate comments, trying to make physical contact with all the girls, hugging, arm around the waist and shoulders, etc. He showed off and bragged about all the large knives he brought to school with him, followed you, and showed up wherever you were. Would force himself into situations, despite being told, no, you can't come, or being asked to leave, and so on. It got to the point where pretty much anyone who knew him avoided him. Anyways, none of us wanted to tell him where we were going, or what we were doing, so we just kind of politely made a vague conversation, hoping our mum would show up soon. Despite the hints we were trying to not so subtly drop that he wasn't welcome. When our mum showed up and we got in the car, right before we were going to close the door, our mum looks at him, smiles and says, "Oh, are you coming too?" And he smiles grossly and says, "Yeah, sure." None of us were very happy about it, but we couldn't blame her. She didn't know we didn't want him there, but he did. Both mine and my brother's room were in the basement, which also had a living room and stuff. So we all just hung out down there. But Greg seemed to have made it his mission to make me specifically uncomfortable, following me, sitting too close to me, touching and trying to hold my hand, making comments about how attractive I am, and how it's so unfortunate that I'm so out of his league I'd never give him a chance. So I quietly asked Martin and Jack if I could go lay down in my room for a while, just to get away from him. They were fine with it and totally understood why. So I announced that I was going to take a nap, thinking that I'd get him to leave me alone. After that, I went to lay down, and maybe actually take a nap in my room. I had a loft bed at the time, like a bunk bed without the bottom bunk, as well as a person-sized stuffed dog on my bed. I had a feeling he was going to try something creepy, so I put my dog in front of the opening of the ladder on my bed and laid on the other side next to the wall. At this point I was almost asleep when I heard my door open really slowly and quietly. He came into my room and stood at the foot of my ladder for a second. But then, I felt him climbing the ladder, and I froze. I tucked myself under my blanket and turned tight to the wall, so all he'd be able to see was the back of my hair. He moved the dog and climbed up and sat on my bed with his legs stretched out for a minute, brushing my hair with his fingers. He seemed to think I was already asleep, and he was doing his best to not wake me. Luckily, I had my phone with me under my blanket, so I texted Jack and Greg that he was in my room and in my bed. And I'm so thankful I did, because almost right after I hit send, he lifted the blankets and slid his legs under them and was moving closer to me, still touching my hair and now my cheek and shoulders. I just remember being terrified, thinking about the possibility of him having one of his knives, the possibility of him hurting me if I reacted wrong, knowing my father was right upstairs, but being too scared to scream for him in fear of being blamed for it myself. I wanted to move, scream at him, slap him away, something, anything. But I couldn't. I hate that I didn't protect myself. Although it felt like it went on forever, my brother and Martin came running into my room and told him to get the fuck out, yelling at him, calling him a creep and telling him to get out of our house and to never look at me again. He just ran out the door without saying anything. I only told a couple of close friends what had happened, because I was too scared to see him or be alone at school. But unfortunately, it's school, and everyone seemed to know what happened immediately. I didn't hide what happened from anyone if they asked, especially other girls, because as much as I was uncomfortable and embarrassed about it, I wanted them to know that he's someone that you need to be careful around, or preferably not around at all. But I was surprised when it became an almost school-wide thing to keep Greg away from me. Even people I didn't know were looking out for me. He came back to school every now and again, always very aggressive, and either acting like nothing happened, or blaming me for it, but always getting shut down by me, or other people, and leaving soon after. After about a month of this, he just stopped coming to school altogether. Lots of rumours of him being in jail or juvie, or just switching schools. But honestly, I think he just stopped going altogether. Either way, as long as I don't ever have to see him again, I don't know what he was planning to do, or what would have happened if I hadn't had my phone and texted my brother, and I don't want to know. But I will always be grateful that they were there. Long-time lurker, first-time poster. I'm on a laptop, so the format should be okay. It's not like anything that bad happened, but at the time, me and my friend were terrified. So I was 14 when this happened. At the time, I told my parents a watered-down version of the events so that they wouldn't worry. I had a friend. Let's call her Alicia. My town is mostly quiet. Not much happens around here, so when I'm walking around, I don't feel like I'm in any danger. My town park has a section to the sides which has hedges in the shape of a square just over 1 metre high, with some gravel, a statue, and 2 benches facing each other about 10 metres from each other. So because it has a statue, it's called the Memorial Park. Most dog walkers don't go in that area, because a lot of people sit there, and there isn't much room to throw a ball. Not to mention there was a huge field-sized area for dog walkers, and anyone else to go, just behind us. Me and my friend are sat on the bench talking, when this old guy with a dog trailing behind him comes into the memorial area. I must mention that me and my friend were sat in the area, because I, at the time, was deathly afraid of large dogs, so I had my eye on him the second he walked into the area. He starts throwing the ball for his dog to chase. Nothing too weird yet, apart from the fact he kept staring me down, and when we made eye contact, he doesn't look away. My friend looks over at him, then goes back to talking to me. Each time the ball is thrown, it gets closer and closer to me. Both the man and my friend can see me visibly flinch and tense every time the dog runs to the ball. My friend took one last look at the man and suggested we leave. Now, there is one entrance/exit to the memorial area, but we didn't want to walk past him because he was stood next to the exit. So we chose to leave through a gap in the hedges in the back, which was made from so many people forcing their way through the area. The guy followed us through the gap at a distance. Seeing as it was almost time to go home, me and my friend started heading towards the town centre. The guy and his dog, who was now in the lead, followed us. I clearly remember my friend taking quick looks at the guy as we walked, and her saying in hurried whispers that he was staring at me. We walked through the town centre and walked to the bottom of the road where me and my friend would have to part ways. We stopped to talk, and I saw at the corner of my eye the man's pace visibly slowed. At this point we had been walking around 10 to 15 minutes. He walked past us slowly and looked me in the eyes and then turned and started walking up the road I was going to have to walk down. My friend insisted she walk me home just to be safe, and because her curfew was later than mine, I was only allowed to stay out till 5 PM if I was lucky, but she could stay out till 9 PM in the summer. He walked not far in front of us the whole walk to my house, his head occasionally turning to look back at us every few minutes. Me and my friend stood on my doorstep and talked while he walked a little further down my road. Then he turned in the direction of my house, got his phone out and started doing something. I watched as my friend walked away on a different road from the man to make sure he didn't follow her. Once she was out of sight, I rushed into my house and up the stairs into the bathroom. I opened the window slightly and watched the man take one last look at my house, then walk away. The scary thing is that because it was almost 3 years ago, I can't remember what his face looks like. So if I did see him again, I don't know if I'd recognize him. So, man in the park, let's not meet again. Was told this story belongs here, so let's go. This happened to me 3 years ago. I was young, recently turning 16, and was a bit new to social media stuff because I finally received a new phone for Facebook. There was an app on Facebook. I can't remember what it was called as my memory's a bit fuzzy, but I think it was called Profoundly, where you can post anonymously from stories to the most fucked up things, and people can send you anonymous messages replying to your story. I was oblivious of all of these. I was just posting poems and short stories so my writing could be recognised. I didn't know of Wattpad back then. I wrote this really dark poem of seeing a loved one from the other side of another mirror, rest admitted, and I was happy with the amount of positive views I'm getting. Then this appeared. I love your poem. You sound romantic and mysterious. What's your name? There was his username, 22, 7km. And I replied politely, telling him my alias instead of my real name. Yet he kept asking and pressuring me. So I finally gave in and told him my name. I was surprised that someone messaged me telling me it's him. He had looked up my Facebook. I proceeded with caution, limiting my replies and ignoring other things. I should have blocked him, but I was curious. I want to know what he wants with a young girl. He then proceeded to change the topic to something sexual like, do you sometimes fantasize of being fucked by 2 men? I snorted, laughing my head off because it came out of nowhere. Then I realised he's serious, and just left him on scene. Yet he kept going, spamming my inbox with sexual fantasies and how it feels for me, and so on. I finally got tired and told him I'm young, yet he kept saying provocative stuff to me. And this is what he said. I'm going to be honest here. You're adorable. Young and quiet, but I can see from your posts you are jolly and friendly. I want to date you. I want to date multiple women of different personalities and looks and sizes. And I'm going to start my harem now. Join my harem. I'll spoil you and love you unconditionally. At this point I was thinking, what the fuck? He kept going, spilling details like he'd love us all conditionally, and he'll give us the best sex, and so much. I got terrified and just didn't reply. I didn't know there was a block option back then because I was new to Facebook, or maybe because I was too shocked to do anything. He started calling me, spamming messages, and then he grew angry at me, calling me a bitch and that he won't fuck me. Then turning soft and apologising and said he'll be gentle with me. He started demanding I reply or else he'll ruin my life, saying he treated me nice and he has it all, yet I'm still being a stupid normie. Threatening me things like he'll track me down and shit. At this point I asked my friend for help and gave my phone to him. He threatened him, reported his account, and blocked him on my Facebook. So, yeah, that was a traumatizing experience for me. The story I'm about to tell is a little difficult for me to talk about for two reasons. One is that the main part took place when I was around 4 or 5 years old, which makes it difficult to remember most details surrounding the story, which is part of the reason it's haunted me for 20 years. The other reason is this story makes me feel uneasy to even really think about it, and this might be only the third time I've ever really told it in full. So, quick background to this story is that I was born and raised in an extremely close, big family. We all lived within about a mile from each other, around a large park in a small Texas town. Unrelated fun fact for those horror fans out there. This park is the present day location of the majority of the town that dreaded sundown murders. Now, my family was jam-packed full of aunts and uncles, and I'd say I saw them all at least once a week for my entire childhood. I can't stress enough how close we all were growing up, and how trusted they all were, as it plays an important part to the story. So this story came up recently between my older brother, my mother and I, because I opened up about a series of nightmares I've basically been plagued with for as long as I can remember. These nightmares are always very similar, and basically always consist of me, as a small child in my childhood home, attempting to escape my house while something horrible chases me. The story is never actually visually seen, but it's more like I sense this massive looming person reaching out to me from the dark, and it always catches me before I can get outside. This usually results in me waking up in a sweat. These dreams always seem to centre around these very vague, yet oddly detailed memories of a babysitter that I once had. Here's where it gets odd. These memories I have are almost like dreams. I very specifically remember the details of what was happening, and the feelings I had during, but everything else was just out of reach. That goes for the babysitter herself as well. I remember it was a white female who was middle-aged, but I can't for the life of me recall her face. In my memories, it's like I never really got a good look at her. The two specific incidents I remember were not happy ones. The first memory I have is that whenever I would get in trouble, what for I have no memory of, I would be forced to sit outside on the back porch in shorts and a t-shirt during winter. I remember because I would shiver and just sit there quietly, scared that complaining would cause more problems. The second memory was even worse to me. The babysitter would love to play this game that she made up. She would turn off all the lights in the house and go hide deep in one of the back rooms. I was left in the front room and told that if I wanted food or to watch TV, I had to find her first. I never had any idea where she was hiding, and if I ever found her, she would jump out, screaming like a madwoman and chase me. I remember her laughter at my fear. I remember often being so frozen with terror that I would sit on the ground near the front door, too scared to go find her. No matter how long I waited, she would never come out of hiding, no matter how hungry I got. I specifically remember this one time very well. I was so little and scared. I was whimpering as I slowly built up the bravery to walk to the back hallway to look for her. My hunger felt deadly at this point, and I needed to find her. I checked bathrooms, bedrooms and closets, and nothing. She was nowhere. I remember standing in my parents' bedroom trying to figure out where she could be. When I saw her, she was a dark shape under the big bed, peeking at me from under the bed skirt. We stared at each other, unmoving. I couldn't make out her face, but I knew she was smiling at me. She was like a crazy feral animal under there. I remember her sliding herself along the floor so fast. I screamed and turned to run as she made it to her feet. And then the memory goes dark. I don't know what happened after that. And that scares me just as much as the memory I do have of the event. I never shared these memories because they seemed so distant, and I often wondered if they were real. One day when I was in my 20s, I mentioned the nightmares to my mother and brother when we were just sitting around, talking, during one of the weeks where my brother and I were home from college. We would often do this to tell funny stories, and remember all of the kids we knew from long before. Then I decided to ask my mum about the babysitter. She seemed confused and told me she never hired babysitters for either I or my brother. Because of how big and close my family was, and how protective my mum was of us, she never trusted anyone but family to watch us. My aunts and grandmother were the absolute opposite of the woman I remember. Loving, kind, fun, and treated me like their own child. I couldn't imagine them doing those things to me. My mum genuinely seemed confused, but also slightly worried, like a mother would be when hearing such a horrible story. She told me she truly couldn't even begin to imagine who I was talking about. With her certainty, and with her memories being so vague in important places, I decided I must have imagined it all. Then, my brother brought it up again the next day when we were driving together. Yeah, I remember that. He said with some concern in his voice. Like, I remember seeing you get taken outside and being forced to sit there, and I thought it was horrible. I don't know why we never told anyone. He too had no memory of who the woman was, but he remembers feeling defenseless over the whole thing. He only had vague memories of the horrible game she would play, but pointed out how he has absolutely no memory of her ever targeting him with her torment. He remembers the events as if he was an audience member. He did, however, remember things that I didn't. This included that I often got in trouble because I would often use my imagination to tell stories, and that the babysitter would often get mad when she realised it was not true. This resulted in me getting kicked out of the house. I just want to point out that my brother is only 1 year older than I am, so he too would have been very little. I thought about bringing it back up with my mum, but I honestly trust that she has no idea who I'm talking about, and I don't want to make her feel horrible about something so long ago that she clearly has no idea about. I just wish I could understand what the hell happened, and who the hell she was. My brother never brought it up again, but told me at the time that he had always played that memory as being young and just misunderstanding whatever was happening. All I do know is babysitter from my nightmares. Let's please never meet again, not even in my sleep. This happened on a train only a couple of hours ago. I was on my way back from work, utterly exhausted. The train arrives and I hop on. Usually I just stand, but after standing all day, I felt like I deserved to sit down for 5 minutes until I had to get off and jump on my second train. I sit down on a corner seat facing away from anyone. The only person in my little block of chairs is a guy whose seat is facing directly at me, but that's just normal, so I don't pay any attention to it. After the doors close and we get moving, I realise the guy who's facing me starts making these aggressive grunts. He does this 2 or 3 times until he starts to loudly fake cough. I pay literally no attention, not even reacting, which leads to him angrily saying, "Excuse me." At this point, I can't ignore him, and I thought I may have just accidentally done something without realising. So I turn my head around to face him, and instantly his tone changes to this little chirpy whining voice. "You look just beautiful." I do a short smile and say thank you, and then completely turn my head to look out of the window in the opposite direction again. "Did you come from heaven?" he said in this weird, childlike, giggly voice. My only response was, again, just a very short half-assed smile. To not anger him, but to give him the hint for him to stop. That's when he leans forward, goes completely blank-faced, stares me directly in the eyes, and says deeper now, "I think I'm going to go to heaven tonight." At this point, I was totally creeped out, and this guy was 6 foot and very broad. I started to feel my pulse rapidly going to my neck, but making sure I showed no sign of fright. After this, he just kept repeating, "You look beautiful," over and over again, looking me up and down. Mind you, I literally had on an oversized hoodie and baggy trousers, so nothing was visible, which just seemed to make it even worse. He asked me when I was getting off, and I just said, "The city," which could mean any of the 3 that we would pass. He asked me what I was doing tonight, where I lived, and I just kept giving him vague answers. After I wouldn't tell him where I was getting off, he started to say, "I'm getting off at," and then the place he was getting off at. But then 5 seconds later, he would change it, then ask where this or that place was, trying to see if I would react to any of them. In the end, I stated that I would be meeting my boyfriend. I wasn't, but I could since he was conveniently in the city. This just made him smile. "Can I come home with you?" I think I must have started to look a bit fidgety, as my stop was next, and I didn't exactly know what to do. He got up and he stood by the doors. Whilst getting up, he smiled and said, "You're going to have a wonderful night." I nearly threw up. We stopped, the buzzers went off, and lots of people ended up being behind him, so he had no option but to open the doors and exit. I waited till the last second and bolted off. He looked back, but I was already going around many different corners, going to my next train, which, luckily, ended up only being in 4 minutes. I don't know who you were, or what you were planning, but let's not meet again. Last week, I wrote about an encounter that I had on the train. This reminded me of something that happened to me when I was 12 or 13, that I had somewhat forgotten about and never really pieced the puzzle together. One day, I was walking home from school when I noticed I had a voicemail on my phone. This was strange, as I would never have voicemails, but I thought that perhaps it was just someone who had left a blank message after staying on the call for too long. I put my headphones in as I plodded along and listened to the voicemail. It was blank, but it went on for quite some time, like someone had wanted to say something, but just ended up hanging up. So that's just what I thought, an accident. Later that night, as I was enchanted by my phone, I got another voicemail. I thought this was strange, as I never got a call in the first place. So I listened once again, and once again, it was blank. However, you could tell someone was there holding the phone up to their face. This seemed to go on for weeks, and it seemed to get worse by the day. I would come out of school and end up having like 6 voicemails. I would listen to the first 5 seconds and delete them if I hadn't said anything by then. At this point, I started to get a bit paranoid. My childlike brain conjured up the worst thought. One of my friends may have been playing a prank on me, and I thought it was getting annoying. I asked around, and everyone denied it, but I was certain that I'd catch them out. Until a week later. I can't exactly remember what this voicemail was about, but I do remember it sounded like a grown man who was extremely angry. He would call me a bitch, a slut, and other such things. I was stupid, however, and didn't tell anyone. I was embarrassed. Had I done something wrong? Day after day I would get threats, to the point where I no longer wanted to go to school. I didn't even want to leave my house. The last voicemail was once again the man yelling, heavily breathing, and then he said something that made my head spin. "I'm coming to get you." I remember sitting with my back against my bedroom door, as if someone was about to kick it right down there and then. I ran into my parents' room and told them that I needed a new phone number, because I kept getting weird voicemails. I told them I deleted them all and that it was bothering me, but obviously they had the wrong number. I got a new number, and no more voicemails. A couple of days later, of nothing, and I decided that I wanted to go see my friends at our hangout. We were all a bunch of goth kids, and this is the one spot where everyone would be. Even then I tended to stick out. I was already wearing heavy makeup, and had teased hair, and you could probably spot me from a mile off. I get on the train, when a man starts to walk the full distance down just to come up to me. He says hi, and said that he liked my style. I felt like I knew him from somewhere. Something felt familiar about him, but I could not at all place where from. That's when the questions started. "How old are you?" "I'm 29. "Oh, you're 13, right?" I hadn't answered, but I thought that he was just quirkily guessing, so I said yeah. "Where do you go to school?" "Oh, you go here, right?" Once again, I hadn't even answered. I felt odd. I just lied and told him that I used to go there, but I would be going to a different school. "So, where are you going today? Are you seeing anyone?" I said I was meeting a bunch of friends, but didn't answer the where I was going part. I started to look away. I no longer wanted to make eye contact with him. He ducks, like straight up bends over and tilts his head just to keep making eye contact. I look at a different direction and he steps in front of me, forcing me to look at him. It wasn't even his body. He moved his face to wherever my eyes would go. I wasn't even speaking now, and it was just a blur of him asking me questions, then answering them himself. He seemed to know everything about me, even all the stores or areas that I had visited in the past month. Adults all around me started to stare, and he seems to panic. "There's a party going on at the library. Want to come?" Obviously, I decline and he gets off. I later find out that near this library are the dingiest alleyways and car parks, probably in the entire city. Months pass and I hear nothing. A trend goes around about YouTubers googling their names and seeing what pops up. I decided it would be fun to do that myself, so I go ahead and Google my username that I used online back then, expecting to see nothing. Just a bunch of junk on the web pages. So I go onto images and see a few months old selfies from me. I click on it and it leads to a website that I didn't know of. The photo doesn't appear to be on the site and its layout looks incredibly old. All there is my username and then a download link called map. I didn't want to download it in case there was some tracking virus on it or something. Well, that's what I thought at first of when I saw it. I panicked, closed everything, and nothing seemed to ever happen again. I also happened to get homeschooling after this as well. It was a very bizarre thing that happened to me, and I still don't know what to make of it. I still wonder what that file was, to this day though. Well, anyway guys, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed them, please leave a like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. I just want to say a big thanks to everyone who supported my channel. We have now done 50 episodes of Let's Not Meet, and I don't plan on giving up soon. I want to keep this going as long as possible, because I love reading the stories, and you guys love hearing them. I'm going to try making them more often, but we're going to have to see what happens. If you have any stories of your own which you would like to have shared, then please make sure to contact me. Link in the description, and you may be featured in a future video. Well, anyway, I hope to see you soon, and I'll speak to you later.